What's up guys? I'm Leslie from LoLoHealthCo and I'm coming to you today from my kitchen in North Vancouver to talk to you all about intermittent fasting, or what I like to call time-restricted eating. Fasting is becoming increasingly popular in the wellness world, and for good reason too. There is a large body of evidence-based research that is accumulating these days about both the short-term and long-term benefits of fasting. So I wanted to talk about both of those benefits with you guys here today, explain intermittent fasting, talk about some of the nuances that come along with it, because although it may sound pretty straightforward, there's a lot of ways that you can get it wrong and a lot of ways that you can make it a lot easier. So I'm gonna give you both some evidence-based information as well as my personal experience. So I'm gonna break down all of this information to make it super easy and actionable for you guys if you wanna start successfully incorporating fasting into your eating patterns. So I personally have been fasting for over 3 years now and I absolutely love it. I was definitely skeptical before I first tried intermittent fasting because I've just been never one of those people who's been a big fan of deprivation diets. And I can tell you that intermittent fasting is definitely not about deprivation. It's not about willpower. It's not about starving yourself. In fact, it's the exact opposite. It's about fueling your body in a proper way so that it can function optimally for you when it needs to, and then go ahead and take that resting and maintenance period for itself so that it can recharge, rejuvenate, and have you ready again to take on your day. So it's really about making your metabolism work better for you. And in a society today where we tend to be overfed and undernourished, fasting is that missing element that we can incorporate into our lives in order to turn that switch back around and have our bodies use our stored fat for fuel instead of constantly asking us for more fuel. I've heard a lot of people say that fasting is just not for them, or maybe it's not for women, or maybe it's too hard on their hormones or their adrenals. And I'd like to touch on all of those issues here today, because in reality, humans are all programmed to be able to fast for longer periods of time. And perhaps we have lost those metabolic pathways because we've taught our body that it's going to be continually getting more fuel throughout the day. But what we've seen now in the research is that as we practice intermittent fasting, we can gain those metabolic pathways back again. And that way you're able to utilize both types of fuel during your day, both glucose as well as stored fat. And we're going to talk today about how we're able to upregulate those pathways, get that metabolic flexibility back, and take control of our metabolism and our hunger without using calorie restriction or deprivation diets that typically are associated with conventional dieting. So whether you're male, female, paleo, keto, vegan, whatever your dietary preferences or eating patterns are, intermittent fasting or time-restricted eating, I believe, is for everyone. So let's get right into it. First of all, let's talk about the short-term and long-term benefits of intermittent fasting, because this is the area of research that has really exploded in the evidence-based research realm. And evidence-based research is really a higher level of evidence when you're looking at research. And normally there's a pretty low level of research when you're looking at nutritional studies, because it's really hard to isolate one part of a nutritional study that isn't affected by other parts. With intermittent fasting, there has been a ton of really good randomized controlled trials that have shown both the short-term and long-term benefits of fasting. Some of the long-term benefits of fasting are mostly related to chronic disease. And this is really exciting because up until now, it's really just been interventional therapies in order to manage diabetes. And we now have a way to actually completely reverse and cure diabetes for the first time since diabetes has been around, which is absolutely incredible. We no longer have to just stick to counting carbs and giving people the appropriate amount of insulin when they eat those carbs in order to manage their glucose level. We can actually implement a low carbohydrate diet and combine with intermittent fasting, and you can completely reverse the insulin resistance effects of type 2 diabetes. Of course, I'm just referring to type 2 diabetes, not type 1 diabetes. So some of the long-term benefits of intermittent fasting is that it improves our blood glucose levels, it improves our insulin sensitivity, it improves our inflammation levels, it improves our cardiovascular health markers, it improves our cognitive function. It promotes the recycling and removal of cellular waste products and old cells. promotes the regeneration of new skin cell tissues to make your skin brighter. It helps build new immune cells to make your immune system stronger. It helps to prevent cancer, and it even helps prevent premature aging, which is pretty incredible for something that is completely free and 100% accessible to every single person. It's not like this gimmicky diet where you have to go and buy expensive supplements or smoothie powders or protein shake powders or anything like that. Fasting is available to every single person. It actually is cheaper because you're skipping meals, and it helps you focus on food quality instead of food quantity, because when we are having those meals, we want to make sure that they're super nutrient dense so that our bodies are still getting all the nutrients that they need since we've been fasting. One of the main benefits that I personally love most about time-restricted eating is that ability to completely take your metabolism and your hunger into your own hands. Before I started using intermittent fasting, I really felt like I was a slave to my metabolism. Not only that, but I was always constantly over-exercising to make up for how hungry I was all the time. I remember back when I was in university, I would eat breakfast right when I woke up, and it would be a nutrient-dense meal. It had fat, fiber, carbs, all the things that the Canadian Food Guide and Health Canada has told to include in every single one of our meals. And I would find that, 2-3 hours later, I would be starving again. I'd be ready for a whole nother meal. Not only that, but whenever I left the house, I was always wanting to bring a snack with me because I felt like I was just a slave to my hunger. Anytime my hunger kicked in, I was always like, uh-oh, I better have a snack on hand because I don't want to have to eat something out that was unhealthy. And therefore, I would just constantly be packing snacks around with me, which is super inconvenient. So with time-restricted eating, you develop the metabolic flexibility in order to go longer between meals and to be able to take control of your hunger. For example, now that I've been fasting for over 3 years, my body has built up that cellular machinery that it needs in order to burn stored fat for fuel. So if I'm at work and I'm super busy, I'm unable to take my lunch break, if I wait just like 10-15 minutes, those hunger feelings just go away, and I'm usually pretty good to go for another few hours until that hunger kicks back in again. But not only that, when I do get those hunger pains, they're not as debilitating as they used to be before. I remember if I used to go too long in between meals before I started fasting, I would get lightheaded, I would get drowsy, my whole system would really just start to shut down due to how fatigued I was from not being able to eat another meal. And with intermittent fasting, I'm able to go seamlessly in between meals. I can skip a meal if I need to. I can skip a whole day of eating if I need to. Sometimes I'll get hunger pains, sometimes I won't. But the benefit is having the choice. Having the choice whether you have the time, whether you have the accessibility. One of the main things about traveling that I really hate is not having accessibility to any great food options. So whenever I'm traveling and I don't have the ability to pack healthy snacks with me, I'll just fast for the day. It's really no big deal, but not only that, it's actually beneficial for my metabolism to give it those periods of rest, which is why I incorporate those longer fasts into my time-restricted eating schedule, which I can talk about more later. But yeah, so some of the other short-term benefits of intermittent fasting is being able to take control of your hunger, being able to switch your body into burning stored fat for fuel instead of burning glucose. Eating this way immediately decreases oxidative stress in your body. So as you know, oxidative stress is responsible for all sorts of damage that can happen to our skin, our organs, our tissues, our immune cells, our DNA. There's all sorts of issues in the body that can arise from too much oxidative stress. So when you fast and you incorporate time-restricted eating into your lifestyle, you're giving your body more of that time in repair mode so it can go ahead and fix all of those issues instead of having to constantly be digesting all day. Another really big short-term benefit is gut integrity and gut health. So I know a lot of people struggle with having a healthy microbiome and healthy gut lining, and there's so many different inflammatory issues such as autoimmune disease, things like celiac and MS, and all of those different types of inflammatory response diseases likely come from having a leaky gut and having a poor gut lining integrity. So fasting really helps give your body that time that it needs to rest and not be digesting without being interrupted by another influx of food bolus. And it can take the time to repair those cells along the gut lining, make sure those tight junctions are really tight so they're not letting anything into your circulatory system that shouldn't be there, that ultimately causes an inflammatory response in the rest of your body. And it helps nourish those cells along your gut lining, because although those cells are doing a lot of work, they also need nourishment themselves. And it really helps to be able to give them those times of fasting that we really evolved to have, and really helps heal the gut lining if you're having any sort of GI issues, which is awesome because we really have no good, safe therapies for improving the integrity of the gut lining at this point. So intermittent fasting also improves your blood sugar levels, so it helps your hunger normalize throughout the day, so you're not getting these peaks and valleys in your blood sugar level that cause mood swings and hunger hormones to get all out of whack. It helps regulate your insulin levels, so you're not getting insulin resistance over time. It helps improve cognitive function. It helps with the production of ketones, which is really great for our cognitive function and the nourishment of our neurons in our brain. And it also helps us build muscle. First, I really want to talk about the type of intermittent fasting that I recommend at LoLoHealthCo. So let's get into that. There are a variety of different types of fasting that you can do, but there's very specific types of fasting that I think are best, especially for people who are just getting into fasting and want to slowly progress. So the type of fasting that I recommend at LoLoHealthCo is what I like to call circadian synced intermittent fasting. And this is a type of fasting that is synced to our natural circadian rhythms. And there's a ton of really great research coming out right now about how important circadian rhythms are for our health and wellness. And one of the things that I really love about this research is that there's a lot of evidence showing right now saying that when we eat is even more important than what we eat, which is revolutionary for the wellness industry, because that has never been a health recommendation that I've ever heard before. So normally it's all about what we eat, macros, how much protein, how much fat, all that kind of good stuff. But there's been some evidence out right now saying that for people who limit their eating window to a shorter period of time without making any adjustments to their diet at all, have seen better weight loss, better hormone function, better immune function, and are able to decrease their cardiovascular risk markers and diabetes risk markers just by tightening up that eating window, which is unreal. So I've really got into looking at this research. I have designed LoLoHealthCo's nutrition program all around circadian synced eating. So for me as a healthcare provider, I work shift work, so I really try to stick to these eating windows even when I'm working shift work. So whether you're looking to gain weight, gain muscle mass, whether you're looking to lose weight and build muscle mass, or whether you're just looking to stay the same, whether you're a mom, whether you're breastfeeding or pregnant, all of these people can take advantage of the benefits of time-restricted eating. You just have to tailor it a little bit to your lifestyle. Time-restricted eating doesn't mean that you're going to be restricting your calories during your eating window. It's actually just the opposite. So every time you eat within your eating window, I want you to eat till you're fully full, and then whenever you get hungry again, you eat again. And sometimes you're gonna have maybe 3 meals a day, maybe you're gonna have 4 meals a day, maybe you're gonna have 1 meal a day. It's really gonna be all about your metabolism and what your body's asking from you during that time period. And it's gonna fluctuate with your activity levels and with your environment, with your brain function. All of these things are gonna influence how much you're gonna be eating during your eating window. But the one thing we can be sure of is that we're not gonna be eating during our fasting window. So regardless of how long you want that fasting window to be, everyone should aim to have about a 12-hour fasting window overnight. And that is just for the general health and maintenance of your body overnight. And that's what we really want to promote with fasting, especially with longer fasting as well. If you're interested in doing 24-hour fasting, that really helps break down all the old proteins that your body doesn't need anymore. It can break it back down into its constituent parts and then use those proteins to rebuild up new tissues again, so that you don't have to be constantly eating to fill those requirements, because your body does have continual protein requirements, which is really fascinating, because in this way, if we are either fasting or protein restricting, we're literally talking to our cells and telling them, hey, you know what? I want you to use this for fuel stores instead of this. And we can dictate how our body is going to be using different types of macronutrients, which is just like so interesting to me, because I didn't learn about any of this in my nutrition program at UBC. And so I love that we're able to learn about all this kind of stuff and take advantage of being able to biohack our biology. So for a time restricted eating window, one of the things that I want to stress is that if you're going to be fasting later into the day, you don't want to be fasting so far into the day that you are pushing back your dinner. So the whole point of a circadian synced time restricted eating window is that we're going to be rising with the sun and getting ready for bed with sunset. Because when we eat something later into the night, it goes ahead and it stimulates that whole progression of our digestive system again. It's got to, activate our organs to start releasing enzymes and hydrochloric acid for the stomach. And there's this whole cycle that happens that has to be engaged when we go ahead and eat something later in the night. And one of the things that I found really interesting is that when we're getting ready for bed and sunset, our melatonin release actually starts to interfere with glucose regulation. So if we are still engaging our digestion and insulin pathways, if we start to shut down at nighttime, we're getting closer to our bedtime, it starts producing melatonin, that's going to inhibit our ability to utilize that glucose that we just gave our body, and it's going to cause that blood sugar to just be hanging around in our system longer, and we really don't want that. We want to get our blood sugar nice and low before we go to bed so that our body can focus all of its energy on the repair and maintenance process so that it doesn't have to be thinking about digesting any food. And not having these fasting windows overnight is really like continuing to cook more meals in the kitchen without ever cleaning up your mess. So the metabolites in your system start building up and building up and building up until the system gets more dysfunctional. So your kitchen is no longer functional when it's full of dishes and you can't move anything anywhere. And it's very much like this repair system. You want to be able to clean everything out and repair the body before you start the digestion system up again in the morning. And that's really going to help the functionality of your metabolism. So once you get to know what your body wants and what your body doesn't want, we're able to adhere to these types of things easier so that we're not constantly being tempted to go on some crazy yo-yo diet in order to get our weight back in check again after the holidays or after a long weekend or what have you. When people are wanting to do crazy juice or soup cleanses in order to get their body back functional again, time restricted eating and whole foods during your eating window is what's going to get your body back on track. And then adding in some additional fasting here and there in order to help with extra maintenance is what's really going to get your body and your metabolism on track so that you never have to worry about trying to lose weight ever again, because you're going to naturally be the weight that you were meant to be. One of the other really great things about circadian sync time restricted eating is that it really helps us stop eating later at night. Not only is this really helpful for reducing the amount of unnecessary calories in our diet, but it also really helps with the syncing of our internal organs. So as I talked about, all of our internal organs that are used for digestion, such as like our pancreas, our liver, our gallbladder, all of those things are also on a circadian rhythm, and all of them function optimally during the daytime when the sun is up, because that is when our ancestors used to eat when we were evolving. So normally your pancreas is going to release some insulin that's going to help you absorb those sugars that you're eating into your cells, but because the liver has gone to sleep, it's going to be a lot slower at accomplishing those actions, and you're going to have blood sugar elevation for a lot longer than you normally would during the day. So you want to make sure that you are not eating late at night for those reasons, to help optimize the circadian rhythms of your internal organs. But eating late at nighttime is also one of the biggest contributors to weight gain or lack of weight loss overnight. So a lot of people might think, oh, I'm doing all the right things. I'm eating a really clean diet. I'm exercising lots and I'm weight training and I'm doing all the things that my doctor or my nutritionist is telling me to do. But I'm time restricted eating too late into the afternoon, and I'm having dinner at maybe say 8 or 9 p.m. and my digestion already started to shut down around 6 or 7 p.m. and you're not able to fully digest that last meal as quickly as you could, and maybe you had dessert after that, and next thing you know, your body is still digesting your food till 1, 2, 3 a.m. and it's had to re-recruit all of that energy over to your digestive system, and it's taken it away from all of the maintenance and repair that needs to happen overnight. So one of the biggest things that I notice when I eat late at night is the appearance of my skin as well as my cognitive function. So your skin renewal and repair process always happens overnight, and having a larger fasting window also helps stimulate autophagy. And autophagy is this like cellular repair process that I keep on referring to. It's usually when I can start to develop some pimples or blackheads, and then I also tend to suffer from cognitive dysfunction. So it almost feels like a really mild hangover, but I just can't get my brain to function properly in the morning, and sometimes it takes me to the afternoon in order to get my brain functioning to where it normally is. And I can really tell the difference when I do that because I'm so used to having a longer window overnight. Before I started time restricting eating all the time, I didn't really notice that that's what was causing it. If you are suffering from cognitive dysfunction in the morning, you might want to look at the composition of your diet. Like I said, making sure that you have a higher fat diet, prioritizing quality proteins, and making sure that you're prioritizing greens and fiber in your diet. And then the other thing that you can do is add a little bit of MCT oil in the morning to either your coffee or tea or whatever you like to drink in the morning, in addition to pushing back your breakfast. So maybe you skip breakfast and you eat it maybe later in the day, or maybe you just go straight into lunch and you have some extra fat in the morning. It's really gonna help increase brain function. The thing that I love so much about fat, and especially MCT oil, is that it doesn't have to be digested. It doesn't have to be moved to the liver. It can actually just be absorbed and sent straight to your major organs. So your brain and your heart can utilize those fats right away.